afternoon, and welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I'm your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. Got a packed program today, so let's just jump right into it, starting with throughout El Paso, Texas today. Many are remembering the 24 people who lost their lives. Today marks the 7th anniversary of the massacre at a Walmart in El Paso. This morning, 23 names were read aloud, each said solemnly, as those in attendance at the candle prayer monument prayed and throughout back to that horrific day 7 years ago. Last night, El Paso County held its annual remembrance ceremony, marking the August 3rd, 2019 Walmart shooting. In a hate-filled rage, Patrick Crucius shot and killed 23 people at the Cielo Vista Walmart and wounded more than 20 others. Each year, El Paso gathers to remember what is the darkest day in its history, to remember the victims, but also to honor the heroes. El Paso also remembers how neighbors and the community in general came together in resilience and love in the aftermath of this mass shooting. A California businessman is in custody for allegedly hiring a hitman to murder someone over an unpaid debt, according to federal prosecutors. Last week, federal agents arrested Marcos Arturo Kleiman in Miami. Kleiman, a Mexican citizen and lawful permanent U.S. resident, is the chief executive officer of Cross-Border Currency Exchange Company in San Diego. Although it ended in an alleged murder-for-hire scheme, the federal investigation began with a probe into money exchange businesses in 2 Southern California counties, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. After agents identified Kleiman as a suspected money launderer, according to court documents. He previously ran a licensed money service business in Southern California. After investigators suspected Kleiman used the business as a cover to evade federal filing requirements and to launder illicit proceeds from drug sales, agents made contact in February of this year. Federal prosecutors recently detailed a deadly human trafficking ring in which immigrants were transported illegally in Union Pacific Railroad car shipping containers. In one of those rail cars, 7 people died in May of this year. The victims were from Mexico and Honduras, who were left gasping for air before they died in the sweltering Texas heat. News Nation's Allie Bradley has more details on the trafficking ring.
Yeah, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas and Homeland Security Investigations announcing what they're calling a significant development in the Laredo train deaths case, saying that they've dismantled a criminal smuggling network, naming 11 defendants in the case, saying they've been operating for 3 years. Now, in the indictment, it includes 4 U.S. citizens, 5 illegal immigrants, and 2 lawful permanent residents. 2 defendants, Karina Garcia and Seferino Huerta Casillas, are still at large. The indictment alleges that all 11 defendants participated in a multi-year human smuggling operation that operated from at least April of 2023 through May 12th of 2026, utilizing the train system to smuggle illegal immigrants after they crossed from Mexico. The indictment says that each individual immigrant paid between $1,500 and $10,000 to individuals in Honduras, Mexico, the United States, and elsewhere to be transported illegally into the interior of the United States. Prosecutors charge them with conspiracy to transport illegal aliens resulting in death and aiding and abetting transport of illegal aliens resulting in death, each carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison. The indictment also includes a criminal forfeiture allegation, meaning the government is seeking to permanently seize property it says was used to facilitate the smuggling operation or was derived from its proceeds if the defendants are convicted. Federal prosecutors say the smuggling organization worked alongside multiple trafficking groups, sharing routes, guides, stash houses, and drivers to transport illegal immigrants from Mexico and Honduras into the United States. After crossing near Del Rio, Texas, these illegal immigrants were allegedly hidden in stash houses or concealed in brush along the Rio Grande before being loaded into shipping containers on freight trains, allowing them to travel deeper into the interior of the country. One of the the individuals in the indictment from Del Rio and was initially busted for harboring illegal immigrants. Mayra Huerta wasn't identified as a person of interest connected to the train deaths. Sources say she was taking money from the illegal immigrants and paying the two main facilitators. When her house was raided, investigators found more than $53,000 in cash and several firearms. The investigation began after 6 illegal immigrants were found dead inside a Union Pacific shipping container at a Laredo rail yard in May. These pictures of the stacked cargo containers and train cars are from the Justice Department's formal indictment. Investigators also linked the Laredo train deaths to a second scene near San Antonio, where another man from the same smuggling venture was found dead alongside railroad tracks after falling from the train. Authorities identified the victims as migrants from Honduras and Mexico, including a 14-year-old boy. The medical examiner determined at least one victim died from heat stroke, and that was likely the cause of death for the others, as they were trapped inside the shipping container. Officials urge people thinking of attempting to cross illegally to do it the legal way.
Those thinking about entering this country illegally, don't. There is a legal pathway for you to come into this country. You do not have to hand your life over to smugglers and the cartels with which they work, because they don't care about your life. Many times we see that these alien smuggling organizations will extort your family members. They'll demand more money from your family members to be released from that stash house. They'll sexually assault you, or worse. We can prosecute those individuals, but we can't bring you back to life.
Now, of course, all this funds the cartel and their criminal enterprise. Officials are saying right now that 92 cartel leaders have actually crossed the border and are now in U.S. custody. In Del Rio, Allie Bradley for News Nation.
Federal prosecutors said that on that day that the 7 victims were loaded into those shipping containers, the outside air temperature hovered between 88 and 92 degrees. But the medical examiner said the temperatures inside the containers were much higher, likely between 120 and 150 degrees. A federal judge has ruled that the Department of Homeland Security can move forward with building border wall through a levee system in a small Texas town. The decision supports the Trump administration's efforts to construct a $46 billion wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. The town of Presidio, which has just a little more than 3,000 residents, argued the wall could cause flooding and that legal procedures were not followed. DHS has waived many regulations to speed up construction and claims it has the authority to bypass the rules. The town's development district said Monday it was very disappointed that the court will allow this potentially disastrous construction to continue. But they went on to say it remains committed to protecting the Big Bend area and those who relied on the threatened levees. Some contractors in Texas are concerned about a policy change related to work on and around rail lines in cities. Any contractor or worker is required to take a safety course and pass a test before being allowed to work on or around them. However, the Texas Department of Transportation now requires all courses and tests to be administered exclusively in English. Capitol reporter Dylan McKim spoke with a contractor who said the change is already impacting their work.
It's a challenge for sure.
Goldline Services, a construction company in Houston, received a contract with Houston Metro to paint canopies at some stations along the rail line. To perform the job, workers needed to take the roadway worker protection training for credentials. But of the 5 employees Goldline sent to training, 4 were turned away.
The explanation was the exam is in English.
The Texas Department of Transportation sent a memo in late June to rail transit agencies across the state, telling them all safety courses can only be administered in English. In the past, the training used to be offered in Spanish as well. A spokesperson from TxDOT said the change was implemented, quote, due to safety concerns with using multiple languages while conducting track maintenance and establishing work zones. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration does not keep track of work-related injuries caused by language barriers. But Sergio De La Yata, a manager with Golden Line Services, said a lot of workers feel more comfortable speaking Spanish, and the new requirements are reducing the available construction workforce.
In terms of the people that are available to be able to work and perform some of the work that these government agencies need, so it's a little bit limiting.
OSHA has told employers that it must provide training to employees in a language language that they understand, which doesn't necessarily mean in English. Also, back in 2010, OSHA said that construction workers must be able to communicate with supervisors and their co-workers on a job site, but does not require that they communicate in English. Reporting here in Austin, I'm Dylan McKim.
TxDOT did confirm that it will be doing random checks to make sure rail transit agencies are complying with the new policy. We'll keep you updated on how this one turns out in the long run. Stay with us when we come back. The story of a nursing mother seeking asylum being held nearly 700 miles away from her two young children in federal immigration detention. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Minelis, your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. A nursing mother seeking asylum is being held nearly 700 miles away from her two young children after federal immigration agents detained her outside her Tennessee home. Her attorneys argue the arrest violated both the U.S. Constitution and Immigration and Customs Enforcement's own policies. Kelly Milan has her story.
The mother's attorneys say she was taking her children to a medical appointment when ICE agents took her into custody. She is using the name Maria Perez as a pseudonym due to a fear of retaliation. She is now being held in Louisiana, while her 10-month-old baby and 2-year-old child remain here in Tennessee. A mother, an infant, a toddler with special needs, and now hundreds of miles between them.
She is a brown woman, a Latina woman. They racially profiled her. They thought we can get another arrest under our belts, and we don't care about these children. And that's what they did.
Maria Perez's attorneys say ICE detained her without a judicial warrant as she prepared to take her children to the doctor. They say since then, her 2-year-old son with Down syndrome has missed medical appointments. They argue agents had no legal basis to arrest her.
There is no warrant. There is no, there is no probable cause. There is no basis at all to even be speaking with this woman and questioning her, much less arresting her.
Perez has lived in the United States since 2022 and is seeking asylum after fleeing domestic violence in Guatemala, according to her attorneys. They say she had no criminal history, is diabetic, and was forced to abruptly stop breastfeeding after her detention.
Louisiana is known as the black hole of immigration detention. Detention facilities there are known to be particularly cruel and particularly difficult to access for attorneys.
Her attorneys say ICE's own policy states the agency should not detain pregnant, postpartum, or nursing mothers except under extraordinary circumstances.
It goes directly contrary to ICE's own policies, and by law and under our Constitution, they have to follow their own policies. They are not supposed to be ripping mothers from babies. The only way that they can justify that is that they can somehow claim that Maria is a threat to our national security. Well, I don't know how they can do that.
At a hearing Wednesday, an immigration judge denied her request for bond, also declining to expedite her asylum case, saying they don't have jurisdiction. Perez's attorneys tonight tell me they plan to file a federal habeas petition in Louisiana and plan to pursue additional constitutional claims. The Department of Homeland Security says they plan to give us a statement soon, and ICE did not respond to News 2's requests for comment. Bob and Haley.
That was Kelly Milan reporting. In other news, over the weekend, the U.S. Coast Guard says they detained 4 migrants from a large sailboat in Mission Bay, California. The Coast Guard says it received a report of a suspicious vessel departing for Mission Bay and directed its team to board the vessel. They say it found 6 people aboard the sailboat, 3 adults, and 1 unaccompanied child said they were from Mexico. The 2 others were U.S. citizens who claimed they owned the sailboat. All 6 were taken into custody by another Department of Homeland Security agency. The sailboat was seized. A man whose slain brother led one of Mexico's most powerful and violent drug cartels pleaded guilty Friday in Washington to conspiring to traffic cocaine and methamphetamine to the United States. Antonio Oseguera Cervantes worked for cartels with his brother Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, the drug lord known as El Mencho. He was killed by the Mexican army back in February, according to federal prosecutors. El Mencho co-founded and led the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, known by its Spanish-language acronym CJNG. Antonio Oseguera Cervantes, 67, of Michoacán, Mexico, now faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. He is scheduled for sentencing on November 13th of this year. An estimated 350,000 Haitian migrants across the United States are still in limbo more than a month after the Supreme Court ended temporary protected status for them. 12,000 of those migrants live in the Springfield, Ohio area. As reporter Julian Jackson tells us, there are alternatives they can try in hope of avoiding deportation.
Religion, membership in a particular social group, national origin, political opinion, or torture convention.
Karen Denise Bradley is the owner of Bradley & Associates. She says if asylum claims do not have proper documentation supporting persecution in a home country, the claim may not be granted.
Establish that the child cannot return to his or her home country. The child has been abandoned or neglected or abused by parents or family members with whom that child may have lived.
Other options include applying for special immigrant juvenile status with the juvenile court.
A parent, a child over the age of 21 who could petition for their parents, or a family member who may be able to file a family-related petition.
If a family member is a U.S. citizen, they could also help someone stay in the U.S. legally. While these are alternatives, Karen recommends people are educated on what direction they should go next. The Department of Homeland Security recently cracking down on false asylum claims, now hoping to find an immigration attorney accused of filing on his client's behalf. A statement from DHS reads in part, quote, "Fraudulent asylum claims threaten the safety of the American people, undermine our immigration system, and delay the removal of dangerous criminal illegal aliens. Under President Trump and Secretary Mullen, we will hold attorneys like this accountable and put an end to the practice of defrauding and abusing our immigration system." End quote. Karen Bradley says it's all up to the individual.
Do you do the self-deport app and take your chances rather than remaining in the United States and being detained and sent to another country? Those are the things that they will have to weigh.
That's Julian Jackson reporting. While these are alternatives, the immigration attorney recommends people be educated on which direction to go next. She encourages anyone living in the United States who has questions about their legal status to reach out to an immigration lawyer. In other headlines, the New Mexico Attorney General is asking a judge to prevent the state child welfare agency from removing children from the United States absent a court order. That request is part of a civil lawsuit filed last week against New Mexico's Children, Youth, and Families Department. Torres's office alleges that the department drove a 15-year-old U.S. citizen to the Mexican border and instructed him to cross the bridge alone to find his estranged mother. The brother is a Mexican national arrested on drug charges, and he was deported earlier this year. The department says the child is safe and also says they are reviewing the complaint and will respond in court. Stay with us. After a quick break, we're going to take a look at a few more headlines happening all across the southern border. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Border Report Live. As the United States commemorates the 250th anniversary of its independence, the El Paso Museum of Art is inviting visitors to reflect on the nation's history, identity, and future. Right now, they have an exhibit from the perspective of artists whose work is rooted along the borderlands. Our El Paso correspondent Araceli Lascano has the story.
Inside one of the galleries at the El Paso Museum of Art, visitors are invited to see America through a different lens. America the Beautiful, selections from the Zoe Diaz collection, features works by Mexican-American, Chicano, and El Paso's rooted artists Gaspar Enriquez, Adriana Corral, and Luis Jimenez. The collection includes pencil drawings and mixed media works in color and black and white. all with different representations of the U.S.-Mexico border, immigration, justice, and belonging. All the works tell stories that are often left out of traditional American history. Museum leaders say the exhibition stresses the borderland's role in shaping the country's story, past and present. Rather than offering one view of history, the exhibition invites visitors to see different perspectives and reflect on what it means to be an American. The collection will be on display until the end of January next year. In El Paso, Texas, Araceli Lascano, Border Report.
Museum officials emphasize that the exhibition is presented alongside works spanning centuries of art history, including the museum's American collection. The artwork will be on display throughout the end of the year. If you're interested in seeing more reporting from Araceli Lascano or Sandra Sanchez or any of the team here at Border Report Live, don't forget you can visit borderreport.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One of the stories up by Araceli right now is the Border Patrol says the border is closed as prosecutors announced 250 new immigration cases. The Border Patrol's El Paso sector is reinforcing that border is closed message by posting a new social media video highlighting aerial surveillance along the southwest border. The latest arrest statistics from U.S. Customs and Border Protection show that along the southwest border, more than 71,000 people have been arrested between ports of entry as of June this fiscal year. 12,762 of those happening in the El Paso sector, the area with the most detentions right here in the Rio Grande Valley. At the same time, federal prosecutors say they filed 250 new immigration-related criminal cases in the Western District of Texas. Several of those arrests have prior convictions for violent crimes, sexual offenses, burglary, and driving while intoxicated, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Another story you can read on borderreport.com. A 31-year-old woman was shot to death outside an OXXO convenience store days after she posted videos on social media alleging she had received death threats and that authorities had failed to protect her. This happened across the Rio Grande from El Paso in Ciudad Juarez. Emergency dispatchers received a 911 call near 10 o'clock one night, reporting that a woman was lying on the ground bleeding heavily outside that gas station at a pretty busy intersection in Juarez, again, right across the border from El Paso. The caller also reported seeing a motorcycle at the scene and said the woman was not moving. Municipal police officers responded and confirmed that the victim had died from apparent gunshot wounds. Another story you can read under a continuing coverage of the Tijuana River Valley. The U.S. and Mexico have reached an agreement to work together on a permanent solution for the sewage crisis in the Tijuana River Valley. This comes after decades of the crisis leading to widespread pollution that closed beaches and filled the air with toxic hydrogen sulfide. You've seen those signs. We've had them right here on Border Report Live that say do not go swimming at beaches all across that region. The original MOU outlined goals for both American and Mexican construction of wastewater infrastructure, including the expansion of a wastewater treatment plant to 50 gallons per day by the end of next year. Among those commitments, again, are rehabilitating pump stations and interceptors along the Tijuana River this year and upgrading wastewater treatment plants on the Mexican side of the border next year. Don't forget, if you are interested in staying informed on the stories shaping the U.S.-Mexico border, you can do it now while you are on your commute home, taking the dog out for a walk, or getting a workout at the gym, as Border Report Live now brings you real-time updates, expert insights, and voices from both sides of the border on podcast form. You can listen now on the Apple Podcast app, iHeartRadio app, the Spotify app, and you can get both the audio and video version of Border Report Live on YouTube as well. And before we go, we wanted to remind you to check out our partners at Political Power Ranker. Political Power Ranker is a weekly show tracking the movers, shakers, and rule makers in American politics. Nextstar's Director of Political Content, Chris Berg, and Director of Emerson College Polling, Spencer Kimball, break down who's up and who's down in the world of politics based on data. Last week's episode focused on the Senate and governor's race in Michigan. If you're interested, check it out at your local Nextstar station's website. That's going to do it for us this time. We'll see you next time.